What's up, everyone? It is Tuesday, June 20th, I think. I think that's right. June 20th. We are back at Resorts World. We're going to get into the 1-3 game. I'm on the list right now. The only problem is there's like 30 people on the list, so I think it's going to be quite a long wait. I heard Tuesday is the worst night in Vegas to play poker. I don't know if that applies during the World Series of Poker, though. It seems like every room has got 30 or more deep on the waiting list. So that's the plan. We're going to see if we can run it up in the 1-3 streets, and I will see you inside. Okay, first playable hand we pick up is Ace-Jack offsuit. We are in the hijack. After it folds to us, we're going to go ahead and raise this up to $10. And we get one caller. The big blind decides to defend his big blind, puts in the $10, and we go heads up to a flop of Queen 4-5 rainbow. Big blind quickly checks it over to us. We're going to be c-betting this with 100% frequency. I think we can fold out a lot of his middling pocket pairs, a lot of suited connectors. Big blind does decide to put in the call, though, so we're going to the turn, which is the king of clubs. Big blind again checks it over to us. I think we need to continue putting on the pressure here to fold out the same type of hands I mentioned earlier. So I go ahead and continue firing here. We do have outs. I think if we hit our 10, we're obviously going to be good. If we hit our ace, we might be good. So I think continuing the aggression makes sense, and the big blind does fold, so we take down this first pot of the night. We have Ace-Jack again, this time the suited variety. We're under the gun and raise it up to $10. The under the gun plus one player decides $10 is not enough. Price of poker's going up to $30. Folds around to the big blind, who thinks here for a little while before electing to go ahead and cold call this under the gun 3-bet. We're going to put in the additional $20. We've got 2/5 of a royal flush here. We're not going anywhere. We want to see a flop, and the flop comes down Jack Deuce 4, giving us top pair, top kicker. Big blind quickly checks. I check over to the pre-flop aggressor. The pre-flop aggressor decides to put in a $40 continuation bet here on this board. Big blind thinks for a little moment before electing to call this $40 continuation bet. I think we could be raising here some frequency of the time, but I think calling is fine as well, and that's what I decide to do. Put in the $40 call, and we're going to go three ways to the Queen of Hearts on the turn, giving us that backdoor nut flush draw. Big blind checks. I go ahead and put in a check. Now the under the gun plus one player decides to slow down on this card. He goes ahead and checks, and we see the 5 of hearts on the river, giving us the stone cold nuts. And better yet, the big blind now decides to go ahead and lead out on this river card for $100. Now I have him on a 2-pair holding, or possibly a hand like ace queen that turned top pair. I still have the under the gun plus one player yet to act behind me, so I think about just calling this $100 bet here to potentially set a trap for the under the gun plus one player if he wants to bluff. I think that's a bit of fancy play syndrome, though. The big blind only has $150-ish behind, so I elect to just go ahead and rip it all in here. The one chip all in. Under the gun plus one doesn't think too long before letting his cards go. The big blind now thinks for about 20 to 30 seconds, says, I think you have a slow played set, can't beat a set, and ultimately he does decide, though, to go ahead and flick in the 1 chip call. So he puts in the call, and we win this $611 pot when we turn over our nut flush. He says he had 2 pair on the turn, so I'm thinking Queen Jack made the most sense. And we take down this big pot to start the night. Always nice to win a big one to get things started right.
Thank you. All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You guys have a great day.
All right, this is a fun one. We've got the pocket rockets, the pocket aces, the number 1. Folds around to the cutoff, who makes it $10. Price of poker's going up. I'm going to raise this up to $35. I want to build a pot here with the number 1 starting hand in poker. Now the small blind decides to tank and think about his options. I've played with this player in one previous session, and I would classify him as a tight, aggressive regular. So when he thinks about this and ultimately decides to put in the 4-bet, I'm putting him on a very tight range. He makes it 140 to go, and I think this is ace-king suited, kings, queens, and probably jacks on the low end of that range. The big blind and the cutoff both fold, so the action is back on me. The question is here now is, do I call pre-flop and just slow play my aces, considering we are quite deep, or do I go ahead and just go ahead and jam it in now based on the range that I'm assigning my opponent? I don't think he's folding any portion of that range. He may find a fold with jacks, might find a fold with ace-king, but this profile type for this player, I don't think he will. So I go ahead and rip it all in here, and he snap calls. He says, please don't have pocket aces. We turn over pocket aces, and he's got the king of clubs and the king of diamonds. We see a clean flop, see a clean turn, and we even hit the ace on the river for good measure. I wonder if there's any merit to just calling on the button. Curious to hear the feedback from the audience, if there's any value there in slow playing the aces. I think the answer is probably no, but I think considering how deep we're almost 200 big blinds deep in this spot, it may make more sense to just call versus going ahead and jamming. But I think the way that I assign the range and the fact that this opponent's probably not folding, it's best to just go ahead and get it in and try to win all the money, which is what we did, and we take down this $1,100 pot. In this hand, we pick up pocket tens. We're under the gun +1. I go ahead and raise this up to $10. The middle position player goes ahead and puts in a call here, so MP1 goes ahead and puts in the $10, and the rest of the table decides to fold. So we end up going heads up here to a flop, and I would say it's a pretty good flop for us. It is 8, 10, 5 rainbow. We flop the nuts. I decide to check here. The middle position player quickly fires out a $15 bet. Now, I think we could call, but I also think we can be check raising here a fair amount of the time. A lot of our range would check raise here as a bluff, also for value. So I decide to go ahead and put in a $45 check raise. And the middle position player asks how much and doesn't think too long before electing on putting in the additional $30. So we're going to be going to a turn card here. Now I have him on an 8x type of hand, like 9-8, 8-7, 8-6, or potentially a pocket pair like 9s. We see the 6 of hearts on the turn. Definitely want to keep betting here. I want to keep building this pot. Now, as far as bet sizing goes, I think we should be betting about $60-ish here on the turn. And this is where I think I might make a little bit of a betting mistake. I elect to go larger on this turn card, and I end up putting in a bet here of $80 on this turn. I think that's going to get most of that 8x range to just fold, and he quickly does release his cards. So we end up taking down this $194 pot. I've played with this gentleman before. I go ahead and show him the set of tens, and we win this hand.
A lot of your hands have played themselves. Nothing
Yeah, right.
All right, this next one we messed up the recording, so we're going to have to go freeze frame. I've got pocket fours in the cutoff, folds around to us. We raise it up to $10. Big blind defends and calls the $10, so we go heads up to a flop of ace, queen, 4, flopping bottom set. Big blind checks. We see bet 15. Big blind calls the $15 bet, and we see the 6 of heart on the turn. Big blind checks. I fire out for $45, continuing to value bet, and the big blind calls the $45 bet, and we see the deuce of hearts on the river. Big blind checks for a third time. I go ahead and fire out a 2/3 pot bet here, about $80 on this river. The big blind now thinks for quite some time. They could have a hand like ace 4 suited, ace 6 suited, maybe a hand like ace jack, ace 10. Unfortunately, though, they do elect to fold, so we don't get any additional value, but we do win this $224 pot. All right, we are in the hijack, and we look down at the ladies, the pocket queens, folds around to us. We're raising it up, make it $10. That's been the standard pre-flop raise size all night. Might as well stick to it. Small blind and big blind both decide to defend and put in the call. So we are going 3 ways to a flop, which is 9-6 deuce. Very safe flop for us. Small blind checks and the big blind checks. They can have a lot of 9x in their range here. They can have some middling pocket pairs. Sure, they can have some sets, but we're not afraid of that. We go ahead and put in the $15 bet. And unfortunately, both players decide to just release their hand, but we end up winning a small $45 pot. All right, this is another fun one. We've got ace queen offsuit in the small blind. Folds around to the cutoff, who raises to $10. Now the cutoff can have a pretty wide raising range here pre-flop, and I rate to have the best hand, so I put in the 3-bet to $40, going a little bit larger because we are out of position. Big blind gets out of the way. The cutoff thinks for a while. Worst case scenario here is we get 4-bet. That would mean we would have to fold. We would be dominated. But the cutoff just decides to put in the call, and we end up going heads up to a flop. Flop comes down, jack 10-6 with 2 spades. Now, I can have all the overpairs here. I can have aces, kings, queens, jacks, 10s, all in my range. I can also have ace, king suited. So I go ahead and put in a continuation bet here. I go a little bit on the larger side of $45. The cutoff basically snap calls here. So we go to a turn, which is the 9 of clubs. Now I think I make a mistake here and decide to check and slow down. I think we should be continuing to put the pressure on, considering we have the range advantage here. But the cutoff checks back, and we go to the river, which is the king of hearts. Now this gives us the nut straight, so now our job is to try to extract max value, and I elect to go with a polarized bet size here over pot. I bet $200, really trying to make it look like I have a missed draw, particularly a missed spade draw, but unfortunately the cutoff folds and we don't get any additional value, but we do win this $373 pot. The last hand of the night, we've got the pocket jacks, the fish hooks. We are in the hijack. Under the gun opens it up to $10, and we get a middle position caller who puts in the $10 as well. We're not going to play for $10. We're going to be 3-betting here in position. We make it $35 to go. Poker Llama, the under the gun player, if you're not familiar with Poker Llama, check out his channel. Seems like a really nice guy. Decides to put in the call. And the middle position player decides to go ahead and put in the call as well. So we're going to end up going 3 ways here to a flop. And unfortunately, it's not the best flop for the jacks. We end up seeing a flop of King 9 deuce. So we do hit the king on the flop, and it ends up checking around, and we see the jack of spades peel off on the turn. Now Poker Llama decides to put in a $30 bet. The middle position player decides to call the $30 bet. And I think we have a decision here between calling and raising. I think there's a lot of 2-pair holdings like King Jack, potentially King 9 that was slow playing on the flop that will call us. But I elect to keep the pot a little bit under control here, and I just put in the $30 call. Don't want to be bloating this pot on a board that could easily have us beat. So I put in the $30 call, and we're going to a river, which is the Queen of Hearts. Now Poker Llama checks. The middle position player checks. And this is where I think we make a big nitty mistake. I think we should be value betting here. I think we can get hands like King Queen, King Jack, King 9 to call us. So a lot of combinations that we could potentially get called by. Yes, there are straights, and yes, there are flushes, but we check back. I think we lose value here, but we do win this $199 pot to end the night.
I know I'm leaving. All right, so we're just wrapping up the session and got back in the car. We played for about 5.5 hours or so, 5 hours and 15 minutes, something like that. And we ran like the sun. Couldn't lose a pot, couldn't get a bad hand. Everything was going our way. All the bluffs worked, got through. All the value bets paid off. One hand where we were super nitty, which you've already seen if you watch this episode, but I even in my notes put I'm a nit because of that hand. Should be value betting on that river, so shame on me. I got to get rid of my nitty tendencies. Monsters under the bed. I got to stop being worried about monsters under the bed. So anyway, we ran really, really good, really fun episode. Super excited to bring it to all of you. We got a chance to play with Poker Llama. If you're not familiar with Poker Llama, check his channel out. He does really good content. Seemed like a really cool dude, so that was fun. If you like the vlog, please do hit the like button. Please do subscribe to the channel. Helps out the channel a lot when you guys hit like and subscribe. And if you have any feedback or any comments, do leave it in the comments below. I will get back to you. Thank you all so much for the support and for watching the vlog. I'm excited to continue the journey, and I'll see you in the next episode.